Тут в конце полки ягоза получается. Там проход есть. Сейчас еще тут срежем.
Ukrainian military expert Dmytro Snerov warned that Russia is pressuring 4 sections of the front to advance and capture Kramatorsk, Sloviansk, Juzivka, and Konstantinivka. He also expressed alarming concern about the situation west of Kurakhove. In quotations, regarding the Novopavlivka direction and the Kurakhove pocket, the situation is difficult and almost dire, as Ukrainian units are already in an operational encirclement. It was necessary to make unpopular decisions without withdrawing from the Dachny area to prevent the operational encirclement of our units. It should be noted that this is an alignment of the front line by the enemy. But in my opinion, the main theater of military operations will shift to the Sloviansk-Kramatorsk agglomeration. The Russians will try to reach the administrative borders of the Donetsk region and take control of 4 key industrial cities currently held by the armed forces of Ukraine. That is, Kramatorsk, Sloviansk, Juzivka, and Konstantinivka before peace negotiations begin, Snerov commented. In fact, the situation is so alarming that other Ukrainian experts, along with analysts from the Deep State OSINT project of Ukraine, have broken the silence on these sectors. More on that later. Meanwhile, things are escalating in Russia's favor in the northern front of the Ukraine war map. RT News brought a report on the 20th of February, citing President Putin as its source. In quotations, Russian troops have entered Ukraine's northeastern Sumy region for the first time since 2022. President Vladimir Putin has said. He briefly spoke about the situation on the battlefield with reporters in St. Petersburg a day after the US and Russia held their first high-level talks in 3 years. According to Putin, in the early hours of Wednesday, soldiers from the 810th Naval Infantry Brigade crossed the border between the Russian Federation and Ukraine and entered the enemy territory. In quotations, our troops are on the offensive in all sections of the front line, he added. And then there's a more recent report of a Russian breakthrough in Kursk, and it seems to be, as of today, confirmed by Ukrainian Deep State project. The report reads, Russian armed forces have taken control of the village of Sverdlikovo in the Suzansky district of the Kursk region. This is evidenced by data from the Ukrainian analytical resource Deep State published on the Telegram channel. So today we will assess the operational encirclement in the post-Kurakhove sector from the perspective of Ukrainian military experts. We will also briefly report on the new Russian attack on the Sumy region as well as the breakthrough to Sverdlikovo. But before I do, I would like to send out a sincere thanks to all of my viewers who have assisted me in monetizing this channel in record time. This channel, in less than 2 weeks, has been able to enable fan funding and by next week will resume AdSense revenue. I have therefore revitalized the membership program with 1 level of membership and have already uploaded more than a dozen videos. It is one of the best ways to support my research while getting exclusive content unavailable on Western mainstream media. Also, feel free to leave a donation via a super thanks or super chat. An explanatory video for the membership program will be in the end screen of this video, as well as on the community post tab. Now let's get into it. So according to the Ukrainian military expert Dmytro Snerov, the pressure from the Chasiv Yar area, which has already been practically seized by the Russians, he says, directly threatens Konstantinivka. In quotations, the enemy's pressure in the Torets direction, where the Toretsk-Konstantinivka highway is located, essentially flanks the positions of Ukraine's defense forces. The sharp intensification of enemy activity in the Kupiansk direction is not so much aimed at capturing Kupiansk itself, but rather at advancing along the Oskil River toward Sloviansk and Kramatorsk. So if you do join the channel membership, you will see a video entitled "This is why Kupiansk and Izium is so important to the defense of the Donbass." That is where I suggest another possible reason for the Kursk region, which was to divert troops and free up the logistic lines for this last defense line in Donetsk. 2 days ago, enemy intensity also increased in the Liman direction, where a powerful strike force was formed to advance towards Sloviansk and Kramatorsk once again. In quotations again, I have identified 4 sections of the front where the goal is to achieve a strategic objective, reaching these 4 cities. Sloviansk is significant for Russia, not only for military reasons, but also for economic ones, due to its shale gas deposits, which are the largest in Europe. Before the full-scale invasion and the anti-terrorist operation, American companies were set to develop these deposits. And then came the Russian invasion, Gherkin's raid, and the seizure of Sloviansk, which was not coincidental. It was meant to block Ukraine's energy independence. Accordingly, the Russians will do everything possible to prevent these shale gas reserves from falling under US control, the military expert emphasized. Sneerov concluded that Ukraine's primary task is not to quarrel with its partners, but to establish a defensive line that would prevent Russian occupiers from approaching these natural resources. Now, the following day, another Ukrainian expert reported in quite a panicked manner about the situation on the post-Kurakhove front. Military expert and reserve colonel of the Ukrainian Armed Forces, former spokesman for the General Staff, Vladislav Seleznyov, believes Ukrainian forces should have withdrawn from the remnants of the Kurakhove bridgehead long ago. He shared his opinions on Ukrainian media, in quotations, "Our forces and resources should have been pulled from the remnants of the Kurakhove bridgehead long ago. Our soldiers, especially the paratroopers from the 79th Brigade, achieved the impossible under brutal conditions, holding the line despite being effectively encircled. After we lost control of Kurakhove and the fighting shifted toward Dachny, the enemy diverted some forces elsewhere, but the pressure here remained intense. Considering the M15 road, which was crucial for supplying our defenders, especially those west of Dachny, near Constantinople, was under enemy fire, stable and uninterrupted logistics became impossible. That affected not just the supply of weapons, equipment and ammunition, but also the evacuation of the wounded and troop rotations. It is hard to frame this in a positive light, he said. The reserve colonel emphasized that Ukrainian defenders held their lines under extreme conditions for a long time. In the end, he said, what had to happen did. We lost control of Ulakli, and in Andriivka, the enemy now dominates, advancing into the southern outskirts, specifically south of Constantinople. This is the result of the enemy's overwhelming advantage in resources, which they have used effectively to keep up constant pressure. What's next, he asks. In the near future, the front line in the sector will likely stabilize around the settlements of Bogatyr and Constantinople. With a battle line consolidated elsewhere, the enemy will be able to shift some forces, he said. The military expert stressed the need to evaluate decisions made at the Kurakhove bridgehead. In quotations, "We need to assess our actions, whether they were the right ones. Looking back, it's clear that before the battles at the Kurakhove bridgehead, we had already lost control of Ugledar. What led to that? What decisions or failures to act caused us to lose such a strategically vital area? This deserves serious analysis to prevent similar mistakes in the future. Because we can fight. What's happening in Kurakhove proves it. The enemy keeps trying to advance but suffers massive losses without making any real territorial gains. Why we failed to hold Ugledar back then and ultimately lost Kurakhove is a separate question that needs to be studied," Seleznyov added. Now, just for context, on February 19th, the Ukrainian Deep State Ocean Project confirmed the cauldron around Kurakhove had effectively collapsed with recent Russian advances into Ulakli, Constantinople, and mostly Andriivka. In quotations, for some time, the Russian forces had been accumulating in the area of Zelenovka, and Sukiali. Now they have started using their reserves, completely occupying the settlement of Zelenica and expanding their success towards Ulakli, taking control of the southern part of the village. The enemy has reached the southeastern outskirts of the village of Constantinople and is fortifying its positions there, the report stated. The Deep State Project readily admitted that the Russian army also fully occupied the village of Dachny, which follows Kurakhove in their advance. For a long time, Ukrainian defense forces were stationed there, but the enemy's movement toward Ulakli and Constantinople threatened their position. Information is being clarified regarding any remaining presence between Dachny and Zelenivka. At the same time, Russian forces are gradually taking over Andriivka, which is the main target in this area, recent analysts report. Russian troops continue to push forward to align the front line by occupying the settlements of Andriivka, Ulakli, Constantinople, and Rozliv. Further up north, RT News carried the report on the Russian attack on Sumy. According to Putin, it says, in the early hours of Wednesday, soldiers from the 810th Naval Infantry Brigade crossed the border between the Russian Federation and Ukraine and entered the enemy territory. Our troops are on the offensive in all sections of the front, he added. The Russian Defense Ministry posted videos of an Iskander ballistic missile hitting Ukrainian artillery positions in Sumy region and Russian naval infantrymen flying kamikaze drones into the enemy trenches. The ministry did not report any major advancements in the area in its daily update on Wednesday. Kiev, however, provided a different account of the events. Andrei Kovalenko, the head of Ukraine's Center for Countering Disinformation, claimed that Ukrainian troops destroyed a reconnaissance unit that tried to cross the border and denied that a large-scale offensive is taking place in the area. However, some other Russian sources confirmed this offensive. This one was from Russian media Lenta on the 19th of February. It reads, the Russian army crossed the border with Ukraine in the Kursk region and entered the Sumy region. Details of the offensive of the Russian armed forces, disclosed by President Vladimir Putin, appeared in the Telegram channel of military blogger Yuri Podolyaka. According to him, Russian troops entered Ukrainian territory from the previously liberated village of Sverdlikovo in the Kursk region and reached the village of Novenkoye in the Sumy region. We will probably then move on to Basovka, building on the success achieved the day before, Podolyaka suggested. The military blogger revealed the purpose of the Russian armed forces offensive. According to him, it is necessary to bypass the enemy's position, which is inconvenient for assault, with subsequent access to the main supply route of the Ukrainian armed forces in the Sudzhansky direction. This will speed up the encirclement of the UAF first and then the following route, he concluded. This is not yet, of course, a full-fledged entry into the Sumy region with large forces, but it is obvious that after the liberation of the territory of the Kursk region, a security zone will be created here, noted the military blogger. Now, the liberation of Sverdlikovo became known on February 17th. According to the Ministry of Defense, the highway connecting Sudzha and Rilsk was taken under control in particular. Then this morning, Lenta provided an updated report on the liberation of Sverdlikovo. It reads, the Russian armed forces have taken control of the village of Sverdlikovo in the Sudzhansky district of the Kursk region. This is evidenced by data from the Ukrainian analytical resource Deep State published on the Telegram channel. It specified that Russian troops have completely driven the armed forces of Ukraine out of Sverdlikovo. Now they continue to put pressure on the Kursk group of the AFU in the western part. Meanwhile, Russian fighters are hunting for logistics that are going to the Kursk region, actively engaging in fire strikes against Ukrainian armed forces fighters moving from the Sumy region. The most dangerous section is Pisarevka-Yunakovka, from where videos of Ukrainian armed forces equipment being hit by FPV drones and artillery have been published many times, notes Operation Z, war correspondents of the Russian Spring Telegram channel.